Hi, everybody. Something a lot of you may not know about me unless you knew me when I was a kid. Once upon a time, I was a big auto racing fan. And you see some toy cars in front of me, some Indy cars, Hiro Matsushita right here, and that number 25, that's Scott Pruitt, his car anyway, the number 20, and Christian Fittipaldi there, that number 15. I used to collect these toy cars almost like I collected the starting lineup figurines. I just loved Indy cars and NASCAR, as I'll get to in a little bit. And I used to love the Indy 500. From age 7 through age 10, when Indy 500 weekend came, that was about all I thought about. Couldn't wait for the race, watched the pre-race, watched programming leading up to it, the old Legends of the Brickyard and Indy 500, A Race for Heroes. Just loved those programs. But then, when I was 11, something changed. Tony George, who was running the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, created his own league, the Indy Racing League, and used that league for the Indy 500, and cars weren't as good, drivers weren't as good, and that damaged my interest in Indy. In fact, in 1997, I was in 7th grade at the time, and rain moved most of the Indy 500 to Tuesday, and I had to go to school on Tuesday. And common sense would have said I'd have taped the race, but I didn't even do that. I was so disinterested in what Indy had become with the IRL. Just didn't really matter that much to me. Now I've gained some of my interest back, and of course, Indy Racing League and the league that used to run at the Indy 500 card eventually merged. Now the IndyCar Series, there's new leadership. It's a little better than it once was. It's just never was the same to me after the Indy Racing League was first formed, and that took away a bit of my interest in the Indy 500. Took away a lot of it for a while, and now some's come back. It just isn't what it once was, but certainly I still have these memories right here of races when I was a kid, and of course these toy cars. Again, Christian Fittipaldi, Scott Pruitt, Hiro Matsushita. Just a few of the Indy cars I had at the time. And then, like I said, I also was a big NASCAR fan once upon a time, and at the top there, that's Mark Martin's number 6, and guy in the middle needs no introduction. Unless you're really not a racing fan, Jeff Gordon, Rainbow Warriors, who eventually won more races than Dale Earnhardt. Jeff Burton, the one in front of you there, the 99 car. And I collected these as well, these NASCAR diecast models, almost like starting lineups. It's a wonder my parents didn't go broke. I bought so many of these, I just took out a few for this video. And I was a big NASCAR fan for years. Well, then came 2004, and it began to change for me. When they decided to change how champions were decided, instead of just the best driver throughout the season, as common sense would dictate, they added a playoff, or as they called it, a chase, and first they put in 10 drivers over, I think, the last 10 races, and the best of the bunch there won the title. Then they increased it to 12 drivers. Now it's 16 drivers with elimination rounds, and the last race of the season, 4 cars compete for a championship, even though the race includes close to 40 cars, and whoever finishes the highest in the top 4 wins the title. That's not manufactured drama. The sky isn't blue. And that wasn't the only issue. Then they changed the cars, made them look a lot different. What they called the car of tomorrow back in 2007, which looks more like a truck or an SUV with a wing on the back. I don't have an example in front of me, but take a look at it if you're interested. Google it or YouTube, whatever. See what they look like. Then that wasn't good enough. Changed the cars around a couple of times, and other than a few racetracks, the racing to me hasn't been as good as it was way back when I was young. I'll still watch some races, and there's still a few drivers I root for. But NASCAR to me went way down starting in 2004. I know some point to the end of the 2000 season when the TV deal with ESPN and TNN and other networks ended. CBS was in there too, that ended. Or an obvious choice for many, 2001 Daytona 500 when Dale Earnhardt, arguably the sport's greatest driver, tragically killed in a crash on the last lap. But for me, it was in 2004 when they tinkered with the championship. And that's when NASCAR began to go downhill for me. I still watch some races. It's just... it doesn't feel the same to me all the time. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to a local track, Colorado National Speedway or something like that, but the big guy... and I'll watch some races with the Cup Series, the big guys on TV. It just, again, isn't the same. I know I've vented about my frustrations with baseball multiple times, and I think rightfully so, but I had frustrations with motorsports too, and still have them to an extent, and that's why my interest there has gone down a bit. I'll still watch Indy this weekend, still watch the Coke 600 for NASCAR, just a little different now. Still nice to go back to the past sometimes. And I'll admit I've been watching old Indy highlights, going back in the 50s looking for black and white highlights, even though most of the 50s Indy 500 highlights are in color, believe it or not. Even found some old Legends of the Brickyards online, watched some of those too. And I like watching old NASCAR highlights as well. Keep the memory alive. Those are my thoughts on motorsports and a little trip to the past. As I thank you for watching, I'll talk to you soon, and I hope you remember, those of you watching in the United States, the true meaning of Memorial Day, to remember those who gave their lives in war for this country. Holiday that I think's a little over-commercialized, but that's another story for another time. Thanks again for watching. Take care, everyone.